Hello, Instagram. It has been so long since I have gone live, and I am blurry on YouTube. Hopefully, I come back into there. We go. I'm back in focus. But hello. It has been forever and a day since I have been live. And so I am so excited to be back with y'all today. Today, we are talking about 5 types of unavailable men. And when it comes to working with healing from love addiction and love avoidance and partnering and understanding that the relationships that we are in are mere reflections of how we feel about ourselves and how we own ourselves, our relationships, and knowing the red flags, who to pick, who not to pick is so important. It's so important. There's a really popular TikTok going around right now that says that there's somebody who said that someone can tell how much a woman loves herself by the person that she's with and how they treat her. And so I feel like that is very true, because when you know your value and when you know what you're worth, it's harder and harder to let someone play in your face. It is not impossible, because we all, once you're in love with someone, once you are really committed to working things out, you know that relationships take work. Relationships take compromise. You even know that you have your own triggers and trauma. And so sometimes you may incorrectly assess what is a red flag and what is dangerous versus what is just human. And so sometimes you do negotiate with something that probably should be a sign that it's time for you to exit and a sign for you to leave. And you only learn that by experience, And so it's important to not shame yourself. It's important to not guilt yourself. It's important not to criticize yourself, because you don't know what you don't know until you go through it, right? And so relationships are a learning experience. Relationships are really journeys for us to find ourselves. The healthiest people who are in the healthiest relationships understand that what comes up for you in a relationship, whether or not it's a trigger, a conflict, or something else, it can be about washing dishes, but it's also about what is the fact that they do dishes in a different way, that they're communicating to you about dishes in a certain way. Why is that so agitating to you, other than just it's annoying? Examples of things that a lot of people may learn through their own process and like maturity is there a part of me that likes to be in control? Is there a part of me that has this struggle with, I need to be the one who does something, and if they don't do it the way that I want it, then I have a hard time coping? Because if that's the case, then that's going to show up in other areas of my life. Am I someone who is an all or nothing person? So if someone doesn't do dishes in a certain way, the way that I want them to, then I throw out all the good things that they've done for me, and I'm very black and white. Chances are that type of quality shows up in other areas of your life as well, where you're either black and white and judgmental and critical with yourself or with other people, and that might be an area for you to grow. Okay, so today we are going to focus on types of unavailable men, but I'm talking about this in this intro right now just to kind of flesh out that it is okay that if on your way to finding yourself and finding what works for you, what doesn't work for you, you have been attached to an unavailable person, to someone who is not good for you because you thought it was something else. Because you thought that this was potential to be a healthy partnership, that you could grow and mirror off of each other and flourish. And so what I was just saying is an example of what that might look like. However, many of us have been in the lion's den with people that we did not know were our enemy. Literally sleeping with the enemy for some of us. And so what I want to talk about today is the 4 types of unavailable men, because here on the podcast and at Black Girls Heal, I've talked about a lot of different things under the Healed and Love Women framework, which is how I help women heal, how I help women go from, or at least a teaching process of going from love addicted to love avoidant, love addicted to love balanced, love avoidant to love available, and love deprived to feeling love nourished, and healing all the trauma that comes within that. So for those of you who've been with me for a while, we have different archetypes where we talk about different types of love addicts. We talk about different types of love avoidance. We talk about different women who are love deprived. But when it comes to these avoidant people, the people that we tend to partner with, I have not fleshed that out. And so I'm going to be fleshing these things out a lot more in the coming weeks, but I want to start with the types of partners that we can be attracted to. Now, this list is non-exhaustive. My hope is that you share with me, either in the comments, even if you're catching this on a replay, share with me if you can relate to any of the types of partners that I'm describing. If you've engaged with them before, if there's anybody that I've missed. And, we may even end up talking about this in a full podcast episode, so that you can listen to it on the run and get it more fleshed out and more deep. I will be doing a free masterclass too about this 2 weeks from now on Tuesday, April 23rd at 6:30 p.m. CST. Again, it is free, and it's titled How to Not Be Duped, Gaslit, and Deceived into thinking that they are the one. 4 steps for love addicts to pick better partners. I'm very excited about sharing these steps. It's information that I haven't shared before, and we're going to be going deep. As always, there's going to be a Q&A, and so we'd love for you to join me there. And you can join by going to blackgirlsheal.org/masterclass to join us. Okay? So if you are ready to hear these 4 types of unavailable men, go ahead and drop a heart in the comments. For those of you who have not caught me live, your girl goes off of interaction. So I will wait for these hearts and take my drinks, because I want to make sure that I'm talking to those of you who need it. I want to make sure that I am tracking with what is happening with you. And as always, please, 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 if you have any questions, any thoughts that come up as I'm talking about this, please feel free to put that in the chat as well. Someone said hi to me earlier. Hi, Nets. Good to see you, my love. Thank you for letting me do my intro. This is my first time connecting with your voice in person. You're beautiful. Oh, thank you, girl. Thank you. I appreciate that. And for those of you who haven't joined me before, you're just catching this, or you saw a reel or something, or short on YouTube. My name is Sheena Lachey. I'm the founder of Black Girls Heal. And what I do is I help women heal from these intimacy disorders and the trauma that causes it. This persistent habit of pushing away healthy love, being over addicted to the love that is not good for us. I'm a therapist by trade, and so I join the coaching practices that I've cultivated through my own healing and recovery from this process, helping thousands of women at this point break these cycles, and in both therapy and in coaching, and also in my own practice as well. And so welcome, and I'm so happy you're here. So thank you for the hearts. Let's talk about it. The first type of unavailable man, and I am doing heterosexual relationships. I am so sorry for those of my followers who are queer identifying, because when it comes to unavailability, there's a little bit of nuance and flavor when it comes to straight couples. So that is why I'm focusing on this type of unavailability here. Okay, so just know you are loved, you are not forgotten. I do plan to have more materials. I mean, you tell me that the rest of our materials really speak to the dynamics of queer identifying relationships as well. So I hope that you offer me some grace and forgiveness for this, for focusing on our straight couples for today. So the first type of unavailable man is Mr. Good on Paper. Mr. Good on Paper. Mr. Good on Paper is exactly what this sounds like. Mr. Good on Paper is the one who has the financially secure job. He is tall, dark, and handsome. Or if your type is light and blonde. Or he is, the right culture, the right background, goes to church, the right amount of spirituality. For those of you who are very spiritual, or those of you who are spiritual, but you cuss a little bit too, maybe y'all are both Greek together. Maybe they went to the right school. Maybe y'all have the same amount of hobbies, right? He is great on paper. Here is the rub. And I'm going by the way, what I'm going through are the most common archetypes that I see my clients deal with. So again, this is not exhaustive, but this is what I see. A lot of my clients are attracted to Mr. Good on Paper. And because he's good on paper, what they will ignore is patterns of cheating and philandering. They will ignore how friendly and flirtatious he is. They will ignore because they have what they feel like is either chemistry, real chemistry that they have together, or because this person is nice to them and they have chilled together, whether or not they've had sex or not. in their mind, my clients will make up a potential, because we have so much synergy, this could be something good. He's being a gentleman. He's going slow. So they will make excuses for the fact that the slowness never has progression. This man never fully asks you out. This man forever wants to just stay in this undefined zone. He may have other friends. He may be someone who keeps you on the phone long periods of time where y'all talking about your backgrounds and your histories and your hearts and your stories, and you are falling more and more in love with this person, but they are keeping you squarely as a resource and as a source for their own emotional fulfillment. They are not making any attempts, again, to take you out on dates, to introduce you into their life, to show you off to other people as their partner, not as their friend, not as their homegirl, not as someone that they are, connecting with. There is no claiming you as a partner. Does that make sense? You may, because this feels so good, you may even be more prone, depending on what your belief and what your lifestyle is when it comes to your sexuality, you may be more prone to sleep with this person because they feel safe, even though they are again, not making any clear efforts to define a relationship with you. Let me know if you have met a Mr. Good on Paper, if you have watched your friends or loved one go through a Mr. Good on Paper, if you have been with a Mr. Good on Paper. What happens with a Mr. Good on Paper is this is a prime suspect to end up in a situationship with. Because he has all of the markers that you feel like you want, you're more willing to forgive him for going so slow and ride it out to see what ends up happening, right? You will tell yourself that he's being a gentleman. You're telling yourself that he's being careful, and that's okay because I'm busy right now too. I have a lot going on. I'm fine with this. I have my girlfriends. I don't really need this, but you're putting your heart on hold. Your heart is on layaway, hoping that this person comes around and makes a real effort. Or you might be the one who's actually initiating and spearheading this relationship. So this is kind of Mr. Go Along to Get Along. These types of men are a lot of times used to women doing all the groundwork and trying to push a relationship. So they may be the ones who, you might be the one who is, hey, we should hang out. We should do this. We should do whatever. And they will say yes. They will say yes to sleeping with you. They'll say yes to hanging out. They'll say yes to going to your family picnic. And you think that means something. One thing I hammer into my students over and over and over and over and over and over again is that until there is a real direct commitment of your relationship, you are both single. It doesn't matter how long you're hanging out. It doesn't matter how intimate you are. It doesn't matter if you're sharing money or not sharing money. Until there is mutual claiming of each other, especially with your male partner initiating a lot of it, you are single. And if you're not careful in this situation, you will become a placeholder for someone who you've created a fantasy relationship in your head. And then when it all comes crashing down, you are doubly heartbroken. You're heartbroken by kind of being led through the weeds with this, ignoring these red flags. Mr. Good on Paper has very clear red flags. The lack of consistency, the flakiness, for some people being very charming, philandering, and non-committal in that way, but you ignore it because of all the other things. Okay? So someone said, this is my baby daddy, Lord. Yep. Anybody else can relate to this or have seen this in their friends or in other people. I missed some comments here on Instagram. Came here from Apple Podcasts. I love your podcast. Glad I caught the live. Awesome. So happy you're here, Misha. 40 years old in a different place in my life where I'm open to new relationships with soul-aligned people, including dating men again. Love that for you. That is a huge step. And so I'm so happy that you have not given up on love, because it is very easy to let the delinquencies and the bad actions of other people stop you from living your life. And that's not to diminish the deep pain and betrayal that happens, that you have to heal from that. But at some point, it is so important and it's so courageous to reclaim your heart and reclaim your life, and create love and relationships on your terms. And so I'm so happy that that's where you are. I've been listening since 2018. Oh my God. Hello. Your name does look kind of familiar too. Kind of surreal for me. So I'm surprised that we haven't caught each other, girl. It's been a minute. That was before I was a mama. Lord. Queer, but this would still apply because I've dated mostly men. I lean towards hetero romantic relationships. Awesome. Great. Okay. That's really important to me for this to be applicable for as many people who identify with love addiction as possible. So thank you so much for sharing that. Definitely hard to get over a Mr. Good on paper. You know why it's hard to get over a Mr. Good on paper? Because of the fantasy you've created. This person is not real. So when I talk about what love addiction is, when people ask me what love addiction is, oh, that's interesting. What's love addiction? Y'all have heard this definition if you followed me any amount of time. Love addiction is the persistent obsession of a person, a relationship, or the fantasy of who that person or relationship could be for you. The fantasy. So you meet a Mr. Good on paper and your brain goes up and away with who this person is. You make up stories about his character. You make up stories about your life together. You make up stories about what could be. And that is the reality that you live in. So when Mr. Good on paper continues to be who he is, who he's always been, but that who he's always been doesn't match up with the fantasy, you are grieving the fantasy that you thought was real. So you're grieving this man that was supposed to be the love of your life, and this man who was the answer to this happily ever after. He was so close to you. You might have even been able to touch him, maybe make love to him, and you had him, and now he's gone. And so to have your deepest desires in your hands and then for it to be gone is devastatingly heartbreaking. However, I'm going to keep going like this on YouTube to clear the camera. However, the person that you had in your hands and the person you were making love to does not exist. He does not exist. The person that exists is the flakiness, the non-committal, the whatever else. The person who's the philanderer, the dishonesty. How did I not mention the dishonesty? Right? The indirectness that comes. This man has always presented that way. If he is this archetype of Mr. Good on paper, that's why there are different people in the comments who can say, I relate to this. Because the patterns are pretty universal for someone who's unavailable in this way. They're kind of used to kind of coasting and receiving. They're more takers. And so you gave and gave and gave to someone who doesn't exist. So the grieving is the grieving, realizing that this is a fantasy, that this person never existed. And getting clear on two things. One, it's okay for me to want and desire what I want and I desire, to not shame yourself for that. You had something that felt so good and felt so real, and you deserve to have those things. So we're never going to shame ourselves for wanting these things and for craving them and desiring them. We're not going to go into our deprivation state and try to repress this when we're heartbroken in this way and say, you know what, forget it. I am not going to care anymore. I can be single forever. I don't care about relationships, whatever. And shut yourself off from someone who was indirect with you. The bad behavior is on his part. The bad behavior is on his part, allowing you, seeing that you're catching feelings, seeing that you are falling for them, allowing to take from you, There is also some responsibility on your side, because I do want to be fair. I do really try to be fair here and talk about our part. Your part is when someone tells you who they are, to believe them. Something else that happens with a Mr. Good on paper is he will talk about how busy he is. He will talk about how he can't really do any commitment right now. He will talk about how he's kind of working through some things and figuring things out. And you take that as, okay, great. I can just chill with you. Instead of being honest with yourself and knowing, nah, the way I work is I fall in love via emotions. The way I work is once I like you, I like you. And I don't want to be in any relationships where I have to restrain my like. Because my heart is not meant to fall for someone and then not be able to act on it, right? Like there are some people that end up being your friends, and there are some people, and y'all, some people may disagree with me. Maybe this is because of who I am, my own attachment style, what I teach here. I believe, maybe some securely attached people don't believe this, but I believe that there may be some people that is either hard or impossible for you to be friends with, either because of what they trigger in you. So they may be triggering some unresolved trauma in you. So that feels very enticing, but it's just really old patterns. And so it's not really about you using tools or whatever else. It's about realizing, okay, this person is dangerous to me. Whether or not they're going to physically harm you, but to be connected to them means I'm more likely to lose myself. In the same way, if I had diabetes, I'm going to be mindful about what I eat. I'm not going to be like, well, if I was really healed, I'll be able to eat anything and just take it in. Like you understand that this is just a networking issue, and that's fine. So either this is someone who I can't be friends with because of what they provoke in me, or I'm honest with myself and I say, without self-judgment, I really like you and I want more. So until you are able and willing to put in the work and the effort to pursue me, I do not want to give you the access to be your friend. Some people can do that, and there might be some people that you're attracted to that you can do that with and it's actually good. And there are some people that you might try to do that with and you're fooling yourself. And so it's okay for you to take care of you. And who's to say it will always be that way? There might be a place in your development and in your healing and in your self-ownership and in your attachment style that there are certain people that you cannot be friends with because of that sensitivity or vulnerability. And then the older you get, the more mature you get, the more healed you get, the more secure in yourself you get, then yeah, you might be able to be more indifferent because your sense of self-worth and value is coming from the inside. But whatever you are, my encouragement, my point is, I want you to not judge yourself, and I want you to take care of yourself along the way. Okay? So the Mr. Good on Paper archetype reminds me of the Eternal Bachelor. Yeah, but here's the thing. Here's what happens too with the Mr. Good on Paper. Hello, I missed a hello. Currently experiencing this in a woman-loving woman situation. Yeah, these things can happen across the board, unfortunately. What happens with this Eternal Bachelor, we can tell ourselves, okay, so this is just how they are. This is just what happens. So then when they end up getting booed up to the next person, it's like like a double arrow to the heart, because it is like, why wasn't I good enough? What was wrong with me? Why didn't they choose me? And you can really personalize it if you're taking it to mean that this person is perfection on a stick. And if you actually were good enough, then they would have chosen you back. Versus y'all weren't the right fit. And the right fit in that the person that is for you is going to pursue you with clarity and decision. Right? It's not even, I think sometimes, going back to the things that I was listed with Mr. Good on Paper and all these very external qualities that this person has, these things outweigh how they treat you. So when the Mr. Eternal Bachelor, Mr. Good on Paper ends up getting in a partnership, you see, oh my God, this was such an amazing person that should have attached to me but didn't. And so, I lost out on something good, versus the fact that you don't want anyone, going back to how I described this happens if you're not clear, and if you allow yourself to be in a situationship, you do not want to be with anyone who's going to drag you emotionally and not be protective of your heart and who you are and take from you and use you. Those are signs of an integrity issue, of an character issue. And what will make up is like, this is like a once in a lifetime thing. Even if you see this as a pattern in other areas and relationships in their life, you'll make this up to say this is a once in a lifetime thing. And the person that Mr. Good on Paper ends up with is living the fairy tale. Those character issues don't go away, y'all. And this is me not wishing ill on anyone who's in a relationship, but if that person struggles with commitment, with communication, with clarity, with fidelity, with honesty, it does not magically go away because he meets the right person. The right person? He still has to work on that. And that's going to show up in their life until he works on it. And that's also, you got to also think with the Mr. Good on Papers, especially if they're a narcissist. Not all Mr. Good on Papers are narcissists. Some folks are just avoidant based on their own trauma and things that they've gone through. You also have to think that a lot of times people partner, who are these types of folks, they partner because that relationship is going to benefit them in some way. So they're going to be taken care of in some way. This person may have so little self-esteem, no matter how they look. You know, some of us, you might be the person or know the person who's the most beautiful woman in the world and does not know the value that she brings. And so she can be in relationships with people who completely devalue her and don't take care of her and don't love her in the way that she wants. So if he partners with someone who makes her whole identity the fact that she is with this king figure, then he can just run and do whatever he wants to do without any accountability, without any responsibility, right? I'm going to go into this more at the masterclass. So hopefully y'all come. Again, for those of you who are joining me just now, I'm hosting a free masterclass on the 23rd called How to Not Be Duped, Gaslit, and Deceived into Thinking They're the One. 4 ways for love addicts to pick better partners. What was I about to say? You can go to blackgirlshill.org/masterclass to learn more about that. But I'm going to go more into the red flags at the masterclass. But we really have to be measuring character and how they treat us and how they treat others, not just with the pretty things on the outside. Okay? So I've talked more about the first one than I wanted to, but it is a very common archetype that I see when I see 4 types of unavailable, when I'm thinking about the unavailable partners that my students and clients tend to partner with. Okay? Let me know if you have any questions about that, or if you're ready for number 2, go ahead and put a 2 or a heart. Put a 2 or a heart in the comments. Let me read this comment while I'm waiting for that. Mr. Good is a lot smarter than we typically give him credit for. He manipulates even when the occasions don't ask for it. He conforms to our wants and beliefs when they seek us. He does not commit. Exactly. Y'all, Mr. Good on Paper feels so good because he knows exactly what you want to say. I have met Mr. Good on Papers. There are some people, men, women, and non-binary folks. There are some people that their gift is reading people. It's innate. They know exactly what they need to say, the tone of the voice. They can read you, know exactly what your needs are. So they know this person loves compliments. They know this person loves to just be the center of attention. They know this person rather feel like they're the ones who are in control. So with this person, they're not going to be as forward, but they're going to kind of linger around to make you feel like you're the one who's choosing to come to them. And you really have to look at the actions that follow with the person that you are connected to. And if they're actually doing the things that are showing that they are committed desiring to be in a committed relationship with you. Okay? Thank you for the 2s. Thank you for the 2s and the emojis. Okay, number 2. Ooh, Lord. Number 2, the second type of unavailable man that I see a lot of my clients connect to is Mr. Mother Wounds. Mr. Mother Wounds. Yay. Okay. Here's the thing about Mr. Mother Wound. There are different variations of Mr. Mother Wound. If I do a podcast episode on this, I might differentiate these a little bit more. But different variations of Mr. Mother Wound are the mama's boy, the one who hates women, and the one who resents women / vulnerable narcissists. And some of these may have some overlaps, and some of these may be very, very different. Okay? So the mama's boy. The mama's boy is the person who is loves his mama. And here's the thing about the mama's boy. A lot of times, especially like in the way pop culture and like social media and things kind of talks about men with mother wounds right now, we can conceptualize a man who is like has failure to launch. He hasn't really left the home. He's irresponsible. He's a scrub. There are men who are mama's boys and love their mamas, But the way that it presents is that there is an inability for them to detach their identity from being the caretaker and the partner of the mom. But they have very successful jobs. They are members and pillars in the community. But one of the ways that their trauma manifested growing up is that their mother used them as surrogate partners. So this man has a lot of loyalty, emotional loyalty, and it's so deeply entrenched. The actual word for this is emotional incest, because all of the ways that this young boy, this child, is being asked to caretake his mom goes past appropriate boundaries, and it becomes more intimate and more integrated and unhealthy. And so this incestuous relationship continues into adulthood to where it is difficult, if not impossible, for him to set boundaries with his mother. On the other side of that, the mother owns her son. So you are always going to come second, and if not, there will be hell to pay. There will be emotional abuse, maybe financial abuse, mental abuse, spiritual abuse, something that comes. And their son, because of the depth of his trauma and what it takes to identify this trauma and what it takes to actually separate healthily from this, it is devastating. It is the most painful. For those of you who've ever struggled with your own codependency and your own difficulty setting boundaries with people, and how your body shakes, and how you may have fear that builds up. Like, you might be really good about setting boundaries with the majority of people, but there's one or two relationships that when it comes to it, there's just so much risk and pain involved. Imagine that, and now multiply that by 10. Because a lot of times the reason why these young boys become the surrogate partners for their mothers is because they are the only male figures, or they're told that they're going to be the only male figures in the household. So their sense of identity is based on caretaking and being good for their mom. Their sense of leadership is based on that. Their sense of whether or not they are safe in the world. If I separate from my mom, literally the world is going to crumble. It's not as simple as I met this woman that I'm deeply in love with, or this person that I'm deeply in love with, and for me to protect this relationship, that means I got to set boundaries with my mom. When the trauma is that deep, y'all, and I'm saying this because I want y'all, I know many of us, or many people, can be in relationships and fall in love with these men because they have amazing hearts. These, again, are not the mother women who hate women and resent women, right? These are the mother women who love women, and they love, and they want to be in love. But the amount of trauma work that happens, the way that this gets in their head, is crippling. That does not mean negating the fact that they need to do the work, because them continuing this type of relationship for the rest of their adulthood is not going to help them. Them enabling this type of abuse, or not setting the boundaries, because I don't want to say enabling, because the abuse started when they were children, and they didn't have any power, which is what makes it so insidious and so wrong. But the more that they do not allow themselves to do the work to differentiate and become their own people, the sadder they're going to get. They're going to get depressed. Their anxiety is going to be through the roof. You know, they're going to watch the dissolution of their relationships. They're going to continue to feel hapless and emasculated at different points in their life, and it's going to be very hard for them to continue to build and become their most best version of themselves. It's very real consequences. So why am I bringing this up with the types of unavailable men? When I talk about unavailability as a whole is that in a room of 100 people, you're going to find the person who has a certain blocker that's going to stop you from being intimate. Sometimes the blocker, with Mr. Good on paper, is the lack of commitment, the indirectness, the flakiness, right? So he's great on paper, but he has these qualities. This also is an example of a third-party relationship. So whether or not the third party is another physical woman, or a third party is an added addiction that they are part of. You know, some of us come from families, homes with a lot of addictions. And so we end up finding people who have their own addictions, whether or not it's the same substance. You know, you grow up in an alcoholic home, so you keep finding people who are alcoholics that you keep falling in love with, or people who have their own outside relationship aside from you that they have trouble creating boundaries with. Whether or not these people are workaholics, whether or not these people, like I'm describing right now, this very overexposed relationship with a mother, overcommitment to an ex relationship that they're not letting go of, their own drug of choice addiction, gambling addiction. There's a whole lot of things, right? And so this is just one form of it, okay? And so it's up to you, especially if you're just starting these types of relationships, to be inquisitive about what these relationships look like. Okay, I've missed some comments because I was talking, running my mouth. Manipulators are masters of reading hearts. Absolutely. Yes, my last ex was super good on paper initially, but after 3 months, the veil started to slip and he revealed himself to be extremely emotionally unavailable. Yep. He had mother wounds too. Yep. Yeah, and so here's the thing. Unavailability, or those of us who are avoidant, the majority of us, if not all of us, I don't have the brain power to kind of think through this statement. So I'm going to say it, and if I need to correct it in the future, you know, y'all listen to the podcast and everything. You'll hear me say the right version. But those of us who are avoidant, it is because we have had trauma that has told us that intimate relationships with people are dangerous. So whether or not we had a parent or a caregiver that was very intrusive and abusive to us, someone who's controlling. This includes growing up in a great home with a lot of money and both parents are there and, you know, you never had to struggle or anything and they came to all your games. If that parent or caregiver withheld affection from you or treated you with disdain when you disappointed them and never like had words of affirmation that weren't like earned or like given, you as a child, all of those things are emotionally flooding to you. So you have to find a way to shut that off. And if you live in that 24/7, you have to create walls to survive. Either that or you become a people pleaser, or for most of us, we're a mixture of both, right? So these men who are very good on paper and super avoidant, if they're not narcissists, and even, well, actually, most of the time narcissism is caused by extreme trauma, but I'm not going to. I don't want anyone listening to this to be like, oh, let me go and be kind to my narcissist because he's had abuse. Fuck that. Fuck that. Fuck the abuse. We're not doing that. People who are avoidant have gone through so much trauma that they've had to learn how to cope. So Mr. Good on Paper has learned how to navigate through the world, reading people and getting just close enough to people to not commit. And if he does commit to someone, it's a business interaction, but he's still going to have his ways to escape the overwhelm in the relationship. So, you know, I understand, and hopefully now you understand where that trauma comes from, but it doesn't excuse it. That phrase that goes, that may explain you, but it doesn't excuse you. It comes to mind. I had one of those. I was pretty young, like 17, 18. His mom didn't like me because I wore my natural hair, so I left him alone. Yeah, that is such a ridiculous reason to create conflict in a relationship. Let me say the next one. For Mr. Mother Wound, and I'm going to move on to the other ones. And I'm going to say them very quickly because, again, I have talked longer about these archetypes than I plan to. Classic ones for Mother Wounds are those who this is their type of trauma. They are in touch with how painful this type of emotional enmeshment is, this type of emotional incest is. And the way that they cope is by resenting womankind, or people who try to take their power. They feel, and maybe this is true for them, they feel that a lot of their problems in life has been started with women, and that they had a mother that was very controlling, emotionally, physically, mentally abusive. Yeah, absolutely. This type of trauma did absolutely contribute to your low sense of self-worth, to the reason why it's very hard for you to launch, because maybe your mom sabotaged you a lot of times because she needed you to be there, and she didn't want you to get too far away, or maybe she, allowed other people to abuse you. Like, these are real things that have happened. But again, these things may explain you, but they don't excuse you. However, because of the amount of abuse by women in their life as young children. And maybe because of that trauma, they have sought out women who will hurt them in the same way and feel disempowered. Their belief in their story is that the world is happening to them. And so what will happen is these people who really don't like women but are sexually attracted to women will partner with women and treat them as an option, as undervalued, as if they're doing you a favor by being there. They may not want to help out because they have too much struggle and they have so many things going on in their life. They may feel like they're the perpetual victim. And if you are not careful, if you're a misfix-it, if you are Bob the Builder, or I've heard other creators and teachers call it Barbara the Builder, if you're someone who part of your childhood trauma is learning that it's your responsibility or your gift to help people, to fix them, to lead them to the light. As this man is telling his story about trauma and people who never believed in him, or, people who have discounted him, you're like, oh, I got that. That's easy to fix. If you listen to podcasts, I've talked a lot about this type of unavailability often. And I feel like that's why I'm getting a lot of more women who are talking about it, because I've put to words some of the things that they have felt, whether or not as a married single mother, or, you can be in a relationship or a situationship with someone, and they are flaky. They are maybe non-committal. They are not quick to give you really any verbal affirmation. They do not really want to gift you anything. And if they do gift you anything, they feel like it's a burden and that you are being unreasonable. If they do anything for you, it's after a fight. There's just so much resistance to them showing up for you because, again, part of their trauma history and what they feel and they believe is that women have only taken from them, and that is you. But again, they have no problem being sexually intimate or benefiting from your presence and receiving from you, but it will never be enough. Okay? So if you have related to any Mr. Mother wounds, let me know in the comments. But in the meantime, let's talk about number 3. If you're ready for number 3, please put a 3 or a heart in the chat. A 3 or a heart in the chat, and I'm going to drink some water because I've been talking. And if I happen to get a phone call on Instagram, sometimes the sound goes out. So if the sound goes out, let me know in the chat, and I'll go out and I'll come back in. Thank you for the 3s. Thank you for the hearts. Okay, number 3, I'm going to run through these because I've been talking a lot. Number 3 is Mr. Always Busy. Now, this could be a Mr. Good on paper, but a lot of times this can be just anybody. So the way that this looks like with my clients, with my students, is they want to hang out with someone, they're talking to someone, they're building something with someone, and this person never has time for them. Now, sometimes the lack of time is because they're kind of like trying to skirt commitment and they're doing their own things on the side, but you're giving them the benefit of the doubt because you've made up this fantasy. Other times, you have found someone who is legitimately busy, and that is part of you finding someone who is not available for you. You might be someone who does need a lot of time and togetherness. You need to be with someone that you can talk with. You need to be with someone that you can build a life with and not see them whenever. But somehow you end up falling in love with the person that doesn't have any time for you. He works offshore. He works for the CIA. He's a chef and has 20-hour days, 7 days a week. He fill in the blank. Right? And so we kind of can sense out subconsciously people who are busy. This also goes along with number 4, Mr. International. I mean, so many people who are currently working through the love addiction, love avoidance stuff, and as we're working together and they're starting to get a little bit of headway, they tell me how they met someone who lives in Germany and they live in Texas. They've met someone who lives in Wisconsin and they live in Atlanta. And long-distance relationships obviously have a history of working for a lot of people. But when I talk about in the context of women who your pattern is that you pick people who are unavailable, we got to look at what are all the ways that I continue to attach to people who cannot fully give me what I need. Whether or not I keep finding people who fully cannot be emotionally available for me or physically available for me. So you can kind of get in your head and be like, okay, well, am I asking for too much? You can't help who you fall in love with and all this other stuff. And yeah, I mean, again, these types of relationships work, for a lot of people. It's not impossible for someone who works lots of hours, who's building their business, who's an entrepreneur, who is having 22-hour days, to not end up finding their person who can make space for that, who has their own life on the side. Absolutely, those things happen. But if I'm talking to a person, if I'm talking to a woman in recovery, I'm going to ask, okay, why do you think that you continue to find people who are either emotionally unavailable or physically unavailable for you? What is the block? Actually, what is the benefit of it? That is a great journaling question for some of you who this continues to happen to you. What do I get by being with unavailable people? The answers might surprise you if you're at a place where you can allow yourself to get to that depth. Sometimes an answer can be, if I'm with someone who's emotionally unavailable, then I really don't have to worry about being seen. I don't have to be worried about being found out. This imposter syndrome that I have going on, I can just let it ride. Physically available, I have a buffer to where I don't really have to feel rejected or abandoned if this doesn't work out because they're already not around me all the time. So I kind of have like a little out already built in to there. You get what I'm saying? So we have to look at, if this is your pattern, you got to look at the reasons why. And these are some of the things that we kind of break down in programs and in working together. But in the meantime, your next step, if this has been helpful to you, if anything that I've talked about, just in general, you follow the platform, you follow the podcast, has been helpful, the free masterclass is the next step. Okay, so you can register, save your seat by going to blackgirlsheal.org/masterclass. I will be teaching it live on April 23rd at 6:30 p.m. CST. You'll get reminder emails and everything, but make sure that you join me there. And the title of that masterclass is How to Not Be Duped, Gaslit, or Deceived into Thinking That They're the One. 4 Ways for Love Addicts to Choose Better Partners. Okay? All right. I got to go put on my mama hat. Pardon also the dust. You can see my green wall. Well, on YouTube, you can see my green wall has been deconstructed. And, it'll be pretty one day again. And over here on Instagram, you can just see the tape, but pardon the dust. But that's it for now, y'all. Sending you all so much love, and I will see you in the next live. Bye. And you're welcome.